Alright, so we're inside now that we're finished with our vocab quiz. Is that chapter 6? We're on page 15. And let me get off of the eraser and scroll in. So go down to, and then came this astonishing girl wife. So Mr. Chips, and I'll turn off half of the house light so there's no glare. Mr. Chips has just met, remember, his wife, Catherine, while he was out on vacation, and that's who he's referring to. I'm sorry, let me start over. This girl wife whom nobody had expected, least of all Chips himself, she made him, to all appearances, a new man. Though most of the newness was really a warming to life of things that were old, imprisoned, and unguessed. Her eyes gained his eyes gained sparkle. His mind, which was adequately, if not brilliantly equipped, began to move more adventurously. And the one thing he had always had, a sense of humor, blossomed into a sudden richness to which his years lent maturity. He began to feel a greater sureness. His discipline improved to a point at which it could become, in a sense, less rigid. Basically, y'all, after more than 25 years of teaching, Mr. Chips finally became popular.
Oh my gosh.
Here's the deal, and this happens in life. It happens possibly with you, sometimes maybe a daily basis. Can someone's mood affect your own?
Yes.
Yes?
Definitely.
If you are around someone who is, I like to say crabby instead of grumpy, but it really is the same thing. Does that affect your mood?
Yes.
But if you're around somebody that's super duper happy, does that kind of liven it up for you?
Yes.
Like the fun person. Okay, wait, now, here's a question. Who's like this? If you are, and we talked about this yesterday, if you're around someone who's kind of crazy happy all the time, does that kind of frustrate you?
Yes. I'm over somewhere. My sister is crazy happy all the time.
And it tends to happen with little ones.
Yes. And
Yeah, they're so crazy happy,
irritating.
but they just make us crazy.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Here's the deal. Mr. Chips is finally, I think, comfortable with himself, and now he's confident. Because this was a guy in his 40s, he thought that he'd never get married because he just never thought that anybody wanted to marry him. That's very low confidence. And then along comes this awesome girl,
He's cute.
and who, yes, and smart, great ideas, creative, and just a good person, maybe, I don't know. But she makes him feel better about himself. And when you feel better about yourself, you get better about yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Get that girl.
You do. I mean, you're not going to win a game if you go on the court and think I'm horrible. You got to pump yourself up, right?
That's why I go to swim
Exactly.
practice.
Was that in here or out there? That's perfect timing. All right, say, where is my he finally became popular? When he had first come to Brookfield, he'd aimed to be loved, honored, and obeyed. But obeyed, at any rate. Obedience he had secured and honor had been granted him, but only now came love. The sudden love of boys for a man who was kind without being soft, who understood them well enough, and not too much, and whose private happiness linked them with their own. He began, finally as a teacher, y'all, after 25 years. He began to make little jokes, the sort that schoolboys like, mnemonics and puns that raised laughs and at the same time imprinted something in the mind. There was one that never failed to please, though it was only a sample of many others. All right, he's trying to tell us, hey, this was my best joke. It's really lame. Okay. Whenever his Roman history forms, when he was teaching Roman history class, came to deal with the lex canuli, which is the law of the ancient Romans, that permitted patricians to marry plebeians. Fancy pants people are patricians. Plebeians were the low-class people. Are you ready for it? Here's the joke. Chips used to add, so that, you see, if Miss Plebs, oh, I can't get through it. It's just too funny. If Miss Plebs wanted to, Mr. Patrician, oh, I just can't handle it. wanted Mr. Patrician to marry her, and he said he couldn't, she probably replied, "Oh, yes you can, you liar." I don't get it either.
I don't get it. What's so funny about that?
This has never been funny.
This is the best.
You're laughing right now. Acting. Thank you. Roars of laughter, not really. But Kathy, he's calling Catherine Kathy now, brought in his views and opinions, also giving him an outlook far beyond the roofs and the turrets of Brookfield, so that he saw his country as something deep and gracious, to which Brookfield was but one of many thieving streams. She had a cleverer brain than his, and he could not confuse her ideas, even if and when he disagreed with them. He remained, for instance, a conservative, we would call that a Republican, in politics, despite all her radical socialist talk. She's kind of the extreme Democrat. Remember we talked about she's a Bernie Sanders supporter. Bernie, oh no man, feel the burn. Feel the burn. Bernie Sanders is like everybody's crazy uncle. And I respect that.
I like Bernie.
I have a Bernie Sanders 2020 t-shirt. Are you kidding me? But even where he did not accept, he absorbed. Her young idealism worked upon his maturity to produce an amalgam, very gentle and wise. Because they basically are very different personalities, but together they make a great person. And they're making each other better. You know? This is when they say opposites attract. So sometimes she persuaded him completely. Brookfield, for example, ran a mission in East London. East London to this day is still kind of a little sketchy. It's a little sketch. Like, you don't want to be walking around late at night in East London.
Or New York. Is it
Well,
like 5 points
parts.
in downtown Columbia?
A little bit. So to which boys and parents contributed generously with money, but rarely with personal contact. So she's talking about, I'm tired of people just donating their money. I need for us to donate our time. You know? And for those of us who are kind of into charity, quarantine, this whole the corona thing, it's been bad because, you know, you can give your money, but you can't actually give your time now. So you can't go to Oliver Gospel and, you know what I mean? Like there's so many protocols and everything. So it's, and Catherine doesn't just give money. Catherine gives her time to help people. Yes.
So much.
So it was Catherine who suggested that a team from the mission, the poor boys, should come up to Brookfield and play one of the school's 11s at soccer. The idea was so revolutionary that from anyone but Catherine, it could not have survived its first frosty reception, which means Catherine was like, okay, all right, Brookfield soccer, here's what we're going to do. All right, yes, go Brookfield. I don't know what your mascot is. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to play. Are you ready? The boys from East London.
Ooh,
And then just crickets.
crickets.
Like, no, we're not. Are you kidding me? No. Okay, but she's really excited. So, they introduce a group of slum boys, poor boys, to the serene pleasances of better class youngsters seemed at first a wanton stirring of all kinds of things that had better be left untouched. The whole staff was against it, and the school, if its opinion could have been taken, was probably against it too. Everyone was certain that those East End lads, those poor boys, would be, one of Miss Liz's favorite words, hooligans, or else that they would be made to feel uncomfortable. Anyhow, there would be incidents, like, oh, we don't want the poor people coming here. They might steal from us.
That's kind of rude.
Incidents.
Yeah.
Thank you. And everyone would be confused and upset. Yet Catherine persisted. My girl did not give up. Chips, she said, they're wrong, you know, and I'm right. I'm looking ahead to the future. They and you are looking back to the past. England isn't always going to be divided into officers and other ranks. And those Poplar boys, Poplar is this area of London I was telling you about, are just, no, Poplar, right here.
Is that your word?
Yes, it is, it has historically been a poor section of London. Yeah, it's still a little sketch, you know what I'm saying? So, those Poplar boys are just as important to England as Brookfield is. You've got to have them here, Chips. You can't satisfy your conscience by writing a check For a few guineas, I don't mean guinea pigs. Guineas is another way of saying dollars, okay?
Dollars?
Uh-huh. And keeping them at arm's length. Besides, they're proud of Brookfield, just as you are. Years hence, maybe, boys of that sort will be coming here. A few of them at any rate, why not? Why ever not? Chips, dear, remember, this is 1897. It's not 1867 when you were up at Cambridge. You get your ideas well stuck in those days. And good ideas they were too, a lot of them. But a few, just a few, Chips, want unsticking. I love how she's like, dude, it's the year 1897. Like, get with the times. You know? It's like,
time to move on.
I don't know. I think we're getting to the point where probably your grandparents are really schooled in technology. Yeah, I think I might be getting to the point where I'm actually getting older than the parents of my middle schoolers. But I can tell you how it is for us. Every once in a while, my parents will come down the street, because they live down the street, and they just say, I need an older boy. Can you, wait, let me get a remote. Okay, we just got this remote. Can you tell Josh to come down to the house and fix this, please? We don't know how to turn the TV on. You know, or they'll literally bring their computer open. I don't know how to turn it off. Can you help me, please? You know what I mean? Like, they need to get with the times. And that's what Catherine is like. I mean, I know it's 100 years or so later, but she's like, dude, you need to get with the times, okay? Learn your tech. So rather to her surprise, he, Mr. Chips, gave way and suddenly became a keen advocate of the proposal. And the volte-face was so complete that the authorities were taken unawares and found themselves consenting to the dangerous experiment. Let's let some poor kids play soccer here. This is the dangerous experiment they're talking about. So these boys, bless their hearts, from Poplar, arrived at Brookfield one Saturday afternoon. They played soccer with the school's second team. They were honorably defeated, and if you love soccer, this is not a bad score, by 7-5. And later, they had high tea with the school team in the dining hall. Then they met the head and were shown all over the school. And Chip saw them off at the railway station in the evening because cars did not exist. Everything had passed without the slightest hitch of any kind, and it was clear that the visitors were taking away with them as fine as an impression as they had left behind. So guess what? It was awesome. Yes.
It is so weird that you keep saying
Poplar. So I don't know if you could quite see it from here, but poplar.
Oh my gosh. It's so...
I will tell you, when it comes to famous settings, okay, of 19th century British literature, and 19th century, therefore remember 1800s, one of the famous settings is going to be Poplar, particularly for someone like Charles Dickens. He's my A Christmas Carol guy. He's my Tale of Two Cities. He's my Oliver Twist. Yeah. So you tend to want your hero of the story to not be all posh and fancy pants. You kind of want your hero to have a struggle at the beginning, like a Marvel superhero, right? So let's let the hero be from this place, because this place, Poplar, is historically poor and still sketch. So we're going to have this guy or girl, but typically it's 1800s guy if you're going to have a hero. Let's let him rise up from Poplar, make all kinds of money, and then get the fancy pants girl. That was kind of almost every book written in the 1800s England. Boom. Poor boy gets really cool looking rich girl.
How cute is the girl?
Huh?
Yeah. I want to date her.
1800s? Now, this one is actually written right before World War II. Yeah. So, they took back with them, these poor boys of Poplar, also the memory of a charming woman who had met them and talked to them for once. Years later, during the war, World War I, a private stationed at a big military camp near Brookfield called on Chips and said he had been one of the first visiting teams. Chips gave him tea and chatted with him till at length, shaking hands, the man said, "And Alice the missus, sir, I remember her well." "Oh, do you?" Chips answered eagerly. "Do you remember her?" "Oh, rather. I should think anyone would. And Chips replied, oh, they don't, you know. At least not here. Boys come and go. New faces all the time. Memories don't last. Even masters don't stay forever. Since last year when old Gribble retired, he's the school butler. There hasn't been anyone here who ever saw my wife. She died, you know, less than a year after your visit in 98. Catherine's going to die pretty soon. 1898.
Why did she die?
Oh, we're gonna get it. You will find out. I'm real sorry to hear that, sir. There's 2 or 3 of my pals, anyhow, who remember her clear as anything, though we did only see her that once. Yes, we remember her, all right. Well, I'm very glad. That was a grand day we all had, and a fine game, too. One of the best days I've ever had in my life. Wish it was then and not now. Straight I do. I'm off to France tomorrow. Here's how I knew it was World War I. Here's one of the worst battles of trench warfare. A month or so later, Chips heard that that same guy, he had been killed at Passchendaele.
Ferdinand.
Passchendaele, this guy who was just saying, oh, hey, how's your wife? And Chips was like, I'm really sorry, but she died a year after you played soccer here. This little fella, this guy's going to be dying at Passchendaele. And if you haven't gotten to that part ever of a social studies book, y'all are European history though. Yeah, so you should maybe, but not anytime soon. You're still learning about early civilizations. World War I was less an air battle, and it was more of a ground battle. Trench warfare, horrible, and Passchendaele was so bloody and so bad. All right, chapter 7, I think we can. And so it stood, a warm and vivid patch in his life, casting a radiance that glowed in 1,000 recollections. Twilight at Mrs. Wickett's. Then when the school bell clanged for call over, brought them back to him in a cloud. Catherine scampering along the stone corridors, laughing beside him at some howler in an essay he was marking. Taking the cello part in a Mozart trio for the school concert, her creamy arms sweeping over the brown sheen of the instrument. She'd been a good player and a fine musician. And Catherine furred and muffed for the December house matches. Catherine at the garden party that followed speech day prize giving. Catherine tending her advice in any little problem that arose. Good advice too, which he did not always take, but which always influenced him. Chips, dear, I'd let them off if I were you. After all, it's nothing very serious. I know I'd like to let them off, but if I do, I'm afraid they'll do it again. Well, try telling them that, frankly, and give them the chance. All right, I might. You remember how bad of a disciplinarian he was for his classroom? Like, remember he called them hooligans and ruffians and a mob, barbarians, like that. And she's like, dude, just like bring them outside and say, hey, you were talking the whole time during my class. That's really not cool. Could you maybe not do that again? And they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. You know, some people actually don't know. Like, people who really talk a lot sometimes really don't realize that they're talking a lot, right? So she really wants him to, don't just yell at them to begin with, just try to reason with them. And there were other things occasionally that were serious. You know, Chips, having all these hundreds of boys kept up here is really an unnatural arrangement when you come to think about it. So that when anything does occur that oughtn't to, don't you think it's a bit unfair to come down on them as if it were their own fault for being here? I don't know about that, Kathy, but I do know that for everybody's sake, we have to be pretty strict about this sort of thing. One black sheep can contaminate others. That's just like one rotten apple can spoil the whole bunch. I'll mark it.
Alright, I hope you're all packed up and ready for carpool.
I am not.
Eliza Fergus.